Put the phone down. Everybody, including you, is addicted to their phone. You, me, everyone. And you don't realize how much it is not only draining you of your time, but is draining you of your life force and making you unhealthy.
So I'm addicted to my phone. I have been spending hours doom scrolling and consuming more than I ever should lately and ever actually even want to admit.
Well, I used to post about my phone addiction a lot, and I don't really do that anymore. And I know there's probably a lot of people wondering, wow, how's that going, Mike? Here's an update. Not good. I have made literally no progress whatsoever on my phone addiction. If anything, I've made substantial regress.
I've come on here to admit something. I know I'm not the only person. So I'm addicted to my phone.
Over the last 10 years, I have done absolutely everything I can to curb an iPhone addiction. I've deleted my social media accounts multiple times. I've turned my phone into grayscale. I've bought lock boxes. So tell me this, why did none of those solutions work? Why is my screen time still embarrassingly high? And am I just really weak, or is there something bigger at play here? Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lola and I make videos breaking down the systems and patterns that shape our everyday lives. So if you like this video and want to see more, make sure to subscribe below and hit the bell button to be notified every time I post. But let's get back to the video, because the TikToks aren't wrong that Gen Z is obsessed with their phones, that we're constantly trying to detox from dopamine. But then again, it's also not as simple as that. So today I want to walk you through my journey with attempting to quit my phone, as well as why everyone is suddenly quitting and why it feels like everyone's having a really hard time with quitting. And I want to just preface that I'm not saying none of these solutions work, because they definitely do in different capacities, and also some tools may be more effective for some people than others, but as you'll probably see, I haven't had a whole lot of luck with it, and I want to get to the bottom of why. Let's take a quick trip back to 2014, which is the year I got my first smartphone. And let me tell you, little Lola was absolutely ecstatic about it. I remember my friends and I downloading Instagram for the first time and getting super excited and competitive about who was going to reach 100 followers first, because for that time being, it really was just a bit of silliness and fun. Or at least it seemed like that to us, because let's be real, anyone who was on Kik or Snapchat in 2014 has seen some really disgusting shit. But anyway, it took me literally less than 2 years as a teenager to realize just how addicted I was already starting to get to my phone. I heard from a friend about a particular jailbroken app that you could download that if you set a period of time, maybe like an hour or two of screen time, it would actually delete all of the apps off your phone for that period of time, and then would reset your phone at the end and bring them all back. And that worked absolute wonders when I was in class or when I was doing homework or had other things to do. But Apple did what they do best, and they added some iOS updates to make sure that we couldn't access any sort of apps like that anymore. And because of that, by the end of 2015, I actually ended up deleting all of my main social media accounts for the first time. We're talking Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and the hundreds, if not thousands, of embarrassing tween selfies on all of them. But almost immediately after this point, I started to feel the trickle back and the pull back to all of the accounts. And yeah, that was made harder by the fact that I was in high school and I had complete fear of missing out over anything happening on social media and me not finding out about it. But what started as a conscious decision of me opening back Instagram and Facebook and only adding my 5-10 closest friends from school on it quickly ballooned straight back out again. And I remember less than 12 months later, suddenly having 1,000 people back on Instagram again. All people I knew in some way or another, but not close friends, not people who I thought should have this inside look at my life. So by that year, I already started looking back into tips and tricks of what I could do to reduce my screen time again. So I started to set some rules for myself, like only using social media on my laptop rather than my phone. And I was pretty strict. I even deleted my Gmail account off my phone as well. I did a lot of research on what kind of settings you could change on your phone, and I ended up turning off background app refresh. I turned off all my notifications for every single app, and I turned my phone onto grayscale for the first time. But no matter what I did, the habit just kept creeping back and back and back. I literally couldn't shake it for the life of me. I remember getting so desperate that I bought a lockbox at some point, and then my friends a few days later complained that they couldn't reach me. Over the next couple of years, I just kept using whatever thing I could find, and my screen time would go through such waves. I'd have days and weeks where I used it for less than an hour over the entire period, and then suddenly I was back to using it for 6 to 8 hours a day again. I promise you, every single screen time app or suggestion you've seen, I have tried it. But there was never one that truly stuck. And it all got so much worse in 2020. And I know most of you guys are going to relate to that, because we were all in the same boat, getting cripplingly addicted to our phones when there was nothing else to do. Yet because it was getting so much worse for everyone, it became even harder for us to separate, because we knew everyone else was on their phone all the time. It became our social lives, the way that we interacted with everyone else, the way we learned about what was going on in the world. So when lockdowns ended, the addiction didn't fall away with it. And ever since then, I have been turning to way more drastic, really desperate measures to try and pry this phone out of my hands. A couple years ago, I ended up completely deleting all my social media accounts again. And I've definitely come to regret it at times, because so many of my memories and photos are stored on all of those accounts. And because I was so desperate in it, I didn't really make an attempt to actually back up everything first before deleting them. So a big lesson there is back your shit up. But anyways, that didn't last very long. Once again, I noticed myself creeping back onto all of the different apps. I re-downloaded Instagram and only had maybe 30 people on it. But a few months later, I added a few more, and then a few more. And now I'm back to exactly where I was before. But that's not the only thing I did. I started leaving my phone outside my bedroom at nights and even taped my charger to a stand outside. I bought a digital camera to take photos and not need to take my phone out. I brought an analog watch. I've bought an alarm clock. And yes, a couple years ago, I bought a manual phone book, which lasted about 3 days. But I did it all. As my phone kept trying to take over all my essential functions, I started fighting back. I bought analog and manual versions of all of the tools that it was trying to replace. I put screen time limits on most of the apps on my phone and asked my partner to pick the password for me, which I still don't know to this day. And one of the biggest changes I made was to dumbify my phone. And I really thought that that was going to be the only solution I needed. Yes, everything previously had failed me, and yes, I had tried time and time again and was still just as addicted to my phone, but I had such high hopes for Dumbify. And for the last year or two, it has been life-changing. Like, my phone is so boring to look at, and that's what I've been looking for the whole time. How to not get stimulated by my phone. How can I be so bored by it that I just want to turn it off and do something in real life? Go see a friend, go do some art, pick up my guitar. And finally, Dumbify had helped me to reach that point. So happy ending, right? This is my success story of how I've finally, after years, beaten the iPhone addiction, taken back my time, gotten my screen time down to 1 hour max a day. Well, you'd think that, wouldn't you? But no, I forgot about one tiny little detail that crops up throughout this story. Our good friends down at Apple, everybody. Because you know what they did when I started settling into Dumbify and started claiming my time back? They released the worst iOS update of all time. And anyone who disagrees with me about this, I will fight you. iOS 26 is the bane of my existence. And funnily enough, this is what inspired this video. Because to the average person, or maybe to someone who, uses a Samsung or an Android phone, this update doesn't seem like a very big deal. But for someone who has tried every tool in the toolbox, has done everything they can to curb this addiction, they have ruined the one tool that was helping me get there. And the worst part, this isn't the first time they've done that. Because that jailbroken app I'd used years ago to help me get off my phone, they'd released an iOS update to also make that unusable. And when I wanted my phone to look boring and monochrome, they released the app library function, which you cannot turn off no matter what. In fact, time and time again, every time someone has found a way to make a phone less addictive, the developers have come back and thrown it back in their faces. So where are things now? Well, if you'd asked me a couple months ago, I would have said pretty good because of Dumbify. But even that decision came at the expense of making things easier for myself in society. Because when I only had a small number of apps on my phone, suddenly I couldn't buy tickets for my bus anymore. I couldn't pay for items in some of my local grocery stores. I couldn't even read a menu or order food at any of the restaurants near me. If I didn't bring my phone with me everywhere I go, suddenly I didn't have my ID. I couldn't authenticate my logins for work or university. And this is a little embarrassing to say because I did not realize how dependent I'd become on Google Maps. But I didn't even know the street names around me anymore, because since I'd moved to this area, I hadn't needed them. So to reflect on this journey, I'm realizing now that I've been asking the wrong question for a long time. I've been asking the whole time, why am I so addicted to this thing? And why can't I quit no matter what I do? But in reality, with all of these multi-billion-dollar corporations working against us at every moment, capitalizing off our attention and our spending dollars, how could we not all become structurally dependent on them? We talk about the topic of phone addictions a lot, but most of the time they're treated as a self-control problem. But if you related to any of the parts of my story from before, then you'll realize that the habits aren't individual, they're not random. These struggles are completely predictable. Because in trying to quit our phones, we're fighting the trillion-dollar companies who are building and developing these technologies, whose entire business models are playing into something called the attention economy. The attention economy is when companies are making money by keeping your eyes on the screen for as long as possible. And I'm sure you've heard this quote before, but if you haven't paid for the product, it's usually you who is the product. And in this case, it's your attention that's the product. Now, there are a number of mechanisms in particular at play here when we're talking about being addicted to phones and technology. First, they're capitalizing off the dopamine rush that you feel when you get a notification or when you're infinitely scrolling. Because when you're getting notifications on your phone, it's the same little part of your brain being satisfied as it would be if you were sitting at a slot machine. Add on the pervasiveness of the technology itself, the fact that they're now designing TV shows that you can watch while also scrolling your phone and also browsing on your computer. And you realize they are colonizing every single free period of your time. Seriously, there is no room for downtime anymore. In fact, a number of apps have an inbuilt feature now where you can decide how much longer you want your audio or video to play when you're falling asleep. They have effectively engineered all of our idle time away. And it only takes a fraction of a second for that dopamine to start kicking in when you pick up your phone, because it doesn't matter if you literally just woke up or you've just gone on break at work. There waiting for you on the front of your screen is 10, 20 notifications, drawing your attention back in. But they're also capitalizing on a complete culture of FOMO, because especially since COVID, most of our social lives exist online now. And you don't want to be that person who misses a hangout with friends, or even a once-in-a-lifetime deal with your favorite online shop. So we constantly feel like if we even take the shortest break from our phone, we are going to miss everything. More than that, we're entering a period that many have deemed digital capitalism. Digital capitalism is a modern economic system that has been emerging for the last 40, 50 years. But it's defined by platform monopolies like Google and Amazon, as well as the commodification of user behavior. And yeah, that user is you. The concept talks about how profit generation has shifted from pure physical production to digital marketplaces that track consumer behavior and leverage digital surveillance. But this age of digital capitalism has only expanded and extended further. Every single moment we're on our phones is being monetized. Platforms are constantly extracting our behavioral data and selling it to the highest bidder. And our attention has become the most valuable commodity in society. And because of that, everyone is competing for our attention. I don't know if you've seen those videos lately, but even fridge and light and vacuum apps are starting to show you content. And what vacuum app needs an infinite scroll? It's become ridiculous, and they're not even trying to hide these insidious tactics anymore. On top of that, there's this cruel irony of people who are desperate to find ways to get off their phones, then seeking their detox advice on social media, because we're scrolling for hours and hours to try find out how to stop scrolling. Many creators who talk about tools to get you off your phone are being sponsored by said tools, so their income is coming from you giving your attention to that app. And even more than that, most of the apps that are recommended these days to reduce your screen time are still tracking your movements, sending you notifications multiple times a day, and still monetizing your attention. So when every moment of boredom for us is another revenue opportunity for all of these companies, they have no skin in the game when it comes to promoting your well-being. And most of the platforms we're using now are optimized for addiction, for compulsive behavior, because these systems are designed in a way that means the more that you struggle, the more valuable you become. So we've talked about a lot of ways in which it's psychologically hard to get off your phone, but there's also a whole load of ways they're making it almost structurally impossible in the first place. And the main one is the transformation of our phones into digital Swiss Army knives. Now, I touched on this a little bit already in the intro, but what I mean by that is that the phone is replacing every other tool in our life. We now have digital wallets, digital IDs, digital banking apps. We have to buy transport tickets online. We have to open our gym app to get into the gym. We have to scan QR codes to get the menus at restaurants. And increasingly, our workspaces and schools are making us use digital authenticators. And as the phone gets more and more convenient and takes up more of the functions of other things in our lives, it becomes so much harder for us to imagine going back to a time when we didn't have it. Because as we rely more on maps and calculators online and calendars, we're externalizing our working memory. This is a process called cognitive offloading, and I want to make an absolute asterisk here that is not bad for everyone. In fact, for neurodivergent minds, cognitive offloading allows us to free up some space in our memory, which then makes it easier for us to store the day-to-day information that we need. However, this state of extreme cognitive offloading becoming normalized in society is really harmful because it's creating systemic dependency for all of us. And we stop being able to participate in society without it. And I don't know if you've seen WALL-E lately, but the human race in that film, that's becoming less and less of a stretch of the imagination every single day.
So let's hover over to the driving range and hit a few virtual balls into space.
Nah, we did that yesterday. I don't want to do that.
Well, then what do you want to do?
I don't know. Something.
Now, I'm not here to fearmonger, but realistically, the more we become dependent on the phones, the less we then become capable of doing ourselves. Because I don't think having an app that turns your lights on and off means you're going to forget how to use a light switch. What I do have a problem with is our home fridges starting to advertise to us 24/7.
Welcome to the future, bitches.
It's Connor's song.
Oh!
I don't want my fridge to be tracking how many snacks I eat after a night out, and I definitely don't want to open my email the next morning and get a coincidental voucher for the same snack. But one effect I notice more than anything is that we're losing the ability to do nothing. Phones are stealing every free moment of our time, and they're taking over our boredom. But boredom is what stimulates our creativity. It's our time for reflection and to let our thoughts wander. But this introspection is being replaced by a need for constant stimulation. It's not just our creativity affected by this. Our critical thinking ability and ability to problem solve also require boredom. And without giving our brain time to process and actually think, we're giving ourselves fewer moments to actually question the narratives that we're hearing around us. So we just sit back and get fed the storylines that these platforms want to feed to us. And this process is killing our nuance and independent thought. It's like growing a flower. Of course you need to feed it, water it, and nourish it, but you're not gonna sit there drowning the thing. If you sit there with a watering can, just pouring water on it constantly non-stop, you're not giving it much space to breathe or grow, are you? What I've noticed is that by constantly scrolling from one idea to the next, you're not giving yourself any time in between to breathe, to consider what you've just read or heard, to think about the biases behind the news that you're hearing. So it's changing our thinking patterns entirely. We're learning to just take on this bit of information, move on, take on this bit of information, move on. And we're leaving no room for independent thought. So we've talked about some of the reasons why it's so hard to quit in the first place, but now we need to focus on the relapse. Why does quitting your phone never stick? Well, first of all, we have no support to stay offline in the first place. Never mind the actual platforms capitalizing off your struggle, but we feel it would be rude to make other people change their behavior for us. One of the hardest times I had when I deleted my social media accounts or locked away my phone was asking all my friends to email me or write me letters to sort out plans with me when I was seeing them in person. Not only that, but all of the companies that have digitalized their programs now make the offline methods so much much harder. And I don't know the last time you had to manually fill out government documents or open a bank account with a paper application, but there is like 84,000 steps in the process these days. You also face a lot of social punishment if you decide to quit your phone. These days, we're expected to be available 24/7 by friends, by family, by colleagues. But if you're temporarily unreachable or don't give an instant reply, you're seen as rude or unreliable. Because most people are still on their phones, connectivity has actually become a moral obligation. And don't get me started on the endless amount of emails I get from random companies like, "We miss you, please come back." And I have a huge bone to pick with Duolingo for starting the acceptance of this parasocial relationship. Because since they started their everyday notifications to your email, to your phone, to your house, every company has followed in their marketing footsteps. And I'm sick of it. But companies feed off this. They design their programs to be easy to relapse to. Have you noticed that when you're trying to delete a social media account or unsubscribe from something, you have to click through like 8 different options straight just to be able to delete it? And they'll pull tricks on you like switching the cancel and delete buttons around so you can't intuitively just keep clicking. But oh no, as soon as you want to sign back up, the one-click option becomes available again. Above all, constantly fighting these environments is emotionally exhausting. And I think it takes a long time for it to start feeling easier. And that's why it's so easy to slide back before we've even realized we're doing it. You're fighting behavioral scientists, social infrastructure, and digital capitalism itself. Genuinely, this is such an asymmetric battle that I don't understand how anyone could argue that you're just too weak to stop. You need constant willpower in order to be able to fight against these forces. But that's tiring, yet it's only tiring for you. It's not tiring for the automated algorithms. And it's not tiring for the companies that can hire people across the world to work day and night. So yes, the small changes do matter if you're trying to get off your phone. But know that every bit of friction you add between you and your phone, they're gonna try and remove. We stopped using phones in the shower, so they invented waterproof phones and waterproof cases. We turned off our phones at night, so they introduced night mode on all of their different apps. We would switch our phones off and put them in our bags when we were driving, so they created hands-free. Because if they wanted you to have a healthy relationship to your phone, they have the resources to be able to help you with that. They're just never going to use them. They didn't have to add features in the latest update that you can't turn off. Features that destroy the simple phone illusion that tens of thousands of people are relying on. Because they are not working with you. Every single weak moment you have, they're going to capitalize off. They're going to monetize. Alright, I've been ranting for a long time, so let's just wrap this up with some final thoughts. If you, like me, have tried to quit your phone multiple times and failed, you're not lazy and you're not weak. Your attention is so valuable, and you yourself are facing up against $100 billion companies, behavioral scientists, engineers, designers, and disgustingly greedy billionaires. And in that sort of fight, I don't think grayscale is going to help you win. But even then, I don't think that means we're powerless in this debate. All of these small acts of friction really do matter, and they're still helping to retrain your brain. So turn off your notifications, leave your phone in another room, use physical tools when you can, because each one of these steps is reducing the cognitive offloading and structural dependency just a little bit more. And in our own circles, but also wider society, I really think we need to encourage not being available all the time. We've normalized expecting instant replies 24/7, but that's so far from normal for us. So I want to say that it's okay to disappear sometimes. Taking rest, letting yourself be bored, and consciously taking time off are all ways of meeting your needs. And if you've got good friends, they should care about your well-being enough to understand that. But as always, I don't think the answer is individual detoxes alone. We desperately need structural change, better regulations, better design ethics, and public conversations about what a healthy digital world looks like. But I definitely do feel some hope. We're seeing more and more people exhausted and burnt out by the pace of social media, by the way technology has taken over their lives. More and more studies are coming out. People are fighting back. back. And more people than ever are questioning whether this is going in a direction that we actually want. So while I can't say that any of the tools I've used have been effective to get me off my phone completely, I've still got a few tips that I think could help you get to a more healthy phone usage. First of all, leaving your phone outside your bedroom really does work wonders. Having specific physical no phone zones allows your brain to encourage that boredom. And from that stems creativity and allows you to think more independently. To make that easier, you might want to get a physical alarm clock. With that being said, some other physical tools might help you to be a bit more intentional about your usage as well. For example, getting yourself a little point and shoot camera that allows you to be more intentional when you're taking photos. Or maybe getting a Kindle if you've got daily commutes and want to rely on something that's not your phone. Finally, the one tip I will stand by no matter what through my entire journey is to turn your notifications off. That is the decision that has single-handedly reduced my baseline anxiety the most. And yes, I had a couple friends a little bit annoyed at first that it was a bit harder to reach me, but everyone around me has understood for a long time that I will get to the messages when I can. And even with messages off, I still check my social media accounts every day. I still check my email in the morning and the night. So it's not that I'm not available at all, it's just that I can choose when to be available more. These are just a few of the tips that have helped me, but I want to know, what's helped you? Have you tried quitting or reducing your phone use? What was your experience with it, and what helped, if anything? I want to say thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. Please give it a like and comment below. And if you enjoyed the essay and want to see more, make sure to subscribe and click the bell to be notified every time I post. But with that, it's time to wrap up, so I will see you all next week.